Join us on the Swim Monkey.
Swim Monkey TV. On the Monkey.
How you doing, everybody? Welcome to July 2020. Stories with Sid. That's what it's about. I am here to lighten up your day, tell a few stories. I am very thrilled with the guests we have tonight. Know them both very well. But before we even invite them on, I've got to get my compatriot, my colleague, my brother in arms, Joe Hour. Come on up, brother Joe. How's it going up in Orlando this week, my friend?
Pretty good. How you doing? A lot of storms, but we're getting through it.
Yeah, we've had a little bit of that, but we're doing mostly mornings, and so we leave the storms for the evening, and we're doing a lot of ocean training. You know, in Florida, Joe, a lot of the schools are going. I mean, our private school is not open yet. And in Broward and Dade, it's even worse than Palm Beach. Dade said today, the mayor came on, they're moving backwards with restaurants and stuff, but we're going to move forward with stories. You know who we have on tonight, Joe?
I have no idea. Who do we have on?
Okay. We have all the way from California, the great Roque Santos.
Wait, Roque?
Roque is here. And coming to us from the state of Virginia, we have one of his biggest competitors and teammates in the breaststroke races and some classic races, Sergio Lopez. There's Sergio. Welcome, gentlemen. Welcome. Roque, how's it going out there for you in California?
Well, they have opened up pools and, basically one swimmer per lane. I actually swam today with my wife. We shared a lane. And we got 45 minutes in, so that's better than nothing. And
now your wife's a master's coach, right? So did she put you through the practice?
Yeah.
Are you training now? Can we call it? Can we say Roque's training again?
Yes, we're going to make a comeback. Maybe Michael Jordan and I'm like that, and I'm just going to make a comeback. Brett Favre, Michael Jordan. That's what I'm going to do.
Awesome. Well, if you do come back, I know the guy who wants to get in the lane next to you and train every day and race. And that's our good friend, Sergio Lopez. How you doing there, Sergio?
Oh, no way, Jose. There's no way I'm getting in the water. It's been, since 1996 that I've swum. So I'm sorry, Roque. My wife is forcing me to take a shower, but not to exercise.
Showers are problems. Showers are definitely problems.
I love a shower, but no swimming.
Well, Sergio, I look at it like you're still a very young man. It took me a while to get back. I swim, but I don't compete. But I'm thinking about doing, I used to do a lot of open water, and I would tell you both, Joe knows this, when you swim an open water race, you don't have to look and compare your time to anything you did when you were real athletes,
It's true.
Well,
it's true.
I think my biggest problem is that when I was a swimmer, I was between 160 something to 170 something pounds, and right now I'm 270 something pounds. So it's kind of makes me self-conscious to put a swimsuit.
Yeah. Well, when you're ready to do the diet I've been on the last 3 years, you direct message me, and I'll get you hooked up with my Purium girls from Florida State. These guys are awesome. Hey, Bradley does that too, Joe. It's really good stuff.
Roque, you still doing Blue 70 stuff?
No, but I have about 20 of their racing suits, and we do the parents relay. We are undefeated. We get
Sergio a suit, and put the 270 in a suit, and he'll look svelte and go 195, right?
Every morning when I look at myself in the mirror, I look svelte. I look awesome.
Hey, Serge, you look beautiful to me.
Your eyes are going bad too. Here, Sergio, your eyes.
Yeah. Well, what are my glasses here?
So here's what I want to do to kind of get into these stories tonight. I want to start with Roque a little bit because I know. Hey, Dan Harrigan wants it. First time under 200 in about 30 years, Dan. It's good. And I'm feeling good about it.
Congratulations.
But I'm going to tell you, Rock, when you first started swimming, I read last year, USA Swimming, I think Mike Watkins did a nice story on you and your family and kind of what you've been through the years, because you're still so involved in swimming, even though you're like not necessarily following the coaching path. You've been in the business world and you can tell us about that. But when you were a young swimmer, I read that you were the 5th out of 6 kids and your brother was swimming the Olympic trials, and that kind of got you all jazzed up. Can you walk us through that and tell us how you got into swimming? Because I know you're a multi-sport athlete. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in Chico, California, where I grew up, it's probably like 100 degrees there today, right? And so in the summertime in Chico, you swim. That's what you do. You go swimming. And so being from a big family, that's what we did. We'd get in the car and we'd go to swim meets, we'd go to swim practice. And so swimming was always a part of my life, but I didn't swim year round. I did do other sports, and I just loved my childhood growing up, being able to play basketball and football in high school, and also I played soccer till like the 8th grade. So I loved sports. I loved competing, and that's kind of where and then my brother walked on at Cal, my brother Dave, and he did very, very well. And his team actually won, 2 NCAA championships. He was the captain. So Nort, I'm like, Nort, I want to try to do that too. So, I walked on at Cal, but before that, going to the trials in 1980, I was the first time I snuck on the pool deck. My brother got me on there. I got to meet Tracy Calkins. How great was that?
How old were you then?
12 in 1980.
So they say they got you right on there. I said, okay, it might be one of the alternates.
And then I see Jesse beside. I'm like, hey, Jesse, right? So I'm a fan of the sport, and now being much older, a lot of those people actually know, right, that swam very well, and so it's been a great process. But that's where you go to the trials. We sat next to Mary T T-shirts. This is a long time ago. It was so, you're cynical. This is great, right? And it was a great time. That was Irvine in 1980 Olympic trials.
So those were the Olympics that we actually never got to.
Yeah.
And sadly, we've talked about that enough. So at that time, Sergio, looking towards the 1980, how old were you? You obviously didn't know too many guys in California growing up. Tell us what was going on in your life.
Well, at 12, in 1980, I was 12, like Rock. We were the same age, 1968. And I was a really bad swimmer. So probably around that time, I was in my grandmother's house, being a menace to society during the summer. Just hanging out. I wouldn't make any national meets or anything, so my season was very short. So in the mornings, I trained on my own. I practiced in kind of like a little pool that they had. No, it wasn't a pool. It was used to irrigate some of the farm that they had. I would clean it of the algae, and I would swim there, an hour or whatever, and then I would go and play in the streets for all day long. That's what I did in the summer. I wanted to be a good swimmer. I trained very hard in the season. I always watched swimmers. Anytime that we had the Russians or the DDR swimmers coming to Barcelona, I went and watched them and tried to get autographs. But I was not that good. So in the summer after my last meet, I would, during the Olympic trials, I didn't have a chance to do that. I would just play, and be a kid.
Well, something obviously happened to both of you guys, and this is great information, and it has to inspire a young coach or a young swimmer who's seeing themselves as maybe not that good at 12, 13, 14. At some point, though, Rock, you had to make a commitment to swimming. You're living in California, and now you're playing football and basketball, but you said, I want to walk on at Cal and be like my brother. Somewhere in high school, what happened?
So, I was also fortunate in Chico, California at that time, was a coach at Chico State, Ernie McGlisco. So like when I was 14, Ernie was my coach, and we did do a lot of time. It reminded me when Sergio was talking of watching videos, and he'd sit there and show videos of the athletes that he had videotaped and talked about strokes. And that started getting me my interest in the sport that way. I think that I was always very competitive, still am a very competitive person. So then, I had a choice. It was the best school I can get in because I didn't have the greatest grade. So, Nort Thornton, who's, one of my heroes, of course, allowed me to walk on Cal, and I felt like I was one of the worst people on the team. And on that team as a freshman was a guy named Matt Biondi, and that was 1986. And that was the year after he came back from the World Championships in Madrid and was a superstar. And there he was on our team, and I'm like, there's Matt Biondi. I don't even know if I belong here, but I could do the dry land really well because I was, an athlete. So I was very fortunate just to make it through that first year at Cal.
So you got through your year at Cal, and then, as I recall, you made your first Olympic trials probably in the middle of your Cal career, right?
Yeah, I went to that was actually, for me as a young kid, you swim in the summertime, you do best times, and then you do best time at the end of the season. You take the winter off because I'm doing all these sports. You start the season again, best times. So my life was always best times until I went to the trials in 1988, where I didn't do my best time. And Mike Barrowman, our great friend, beat me by 10 seconds. That was a little eye-opener. Like,
Marco wants to know where Barrowman is. We did reach out, Steve, but he's got another commitment tonight. So we're going to tell stories about him if he wants to tell stories with us.
I like that.
Nice.
So Sergio,
Yes.
You're looking at 80 to 88, things going on in your life. You're no longer just swimming in the season. At some point, you got to America. What happened for you?
Well, pretty much swimming was my life. So it's not that, I started swimming when I was 3 years old. And it was because my father left home. So my mom had a couple of jobs and I was always in the pool. So whenever the school was over, if I didn't have a competition, when I was bad, I was not that good, I would go to my grandmother's. But I think around the age of 15, 16, I started going to competitions more into the summer. I think I made my first nationals when I was 17 or 16, 17. And then, when I was 19, I swam, I think, the 9th fastest time in the world. 18th. And I got a call by Doc Conselman that he saw me swim at the World Championships in Barcelona, in Madrid in 1986, and offered me a scholarship. So I didn't speak in English. I had 7 years of French, so I didn't know what to do. I asked my mom. My mom told me, pack your bags and go. So I bought a plane ticket and came to America in 1987. And I didn't start school because I couldn't speak English. I work at a I work at a sorority. I wash dishes for food, and I taught myself English and coached myself for a while. And then I got into school in January. And then I went to NC2As and I met Rock. That was a scary thing.
Hold on, time out.
Yeah.
You wash dishes in a sorority?
Yes.
You're the luckiest guy in the world.
Oh, I thought so. There were 145 girls at DG's, and I went to Bloomington, Indiana. I swam for Doc Conselman. Well, at that time I wasn't swimming for him, but so a friend of mine was washing dishes for food. So I asked if I could do that. So I washed dishes for breakfast and lunch and dinner, and I tried to communicate with them sometimes, but it didn't work.
Sergio, we did that at UCLA. They called us hashers. Tony Bartle got me the job, and we were hashers, and we met all the sorority girls. We went to all their formals, and I don't stay in touch with any of them. I'm sure we weren't.
Well, think about this. I think my English got better, and I don't use the F word so much. I'm sorry about that. Not about that. I'm sorry about the F thing. But I remember the cook, the people working in the kitchen, they use it. If they say good morning, they use it 5 times before they say good morning, So the first thing I learned was the bad words, And then the sorority girls thought it was funny on the weekends, whenever they were happy, to come into the kitchen when I was washing dishes and try to make me say bad words. And I will be with the gun washing dishes, and they'll say, "Oh, say this," and I'll be like, blah, blah. So
all you have to do is speak French to the ladies. If you speak French to the ladies, it'll be over.
No, it was very funny. They didn't pay attention to me until I got the medal at the Olympics, and there was a big article in the newspaper. And then the next time I started washing dishes and I was there, all the girls came to talk to me, and they kind of like, it was very interesting.
But I want to add that it's imagine a kid from it's a big city, Barcelona, comes to America, doesn't understand the language, and is trying to just figure it out and make it. Like the courage that Sergio showed to do that is phenomenal. I think that says a lot about him. I think that's important.
Thanks.
Yeah.
I tell my children, I told my son, I said, if you had to do what I did to go to school, you could not survive.
I couldn't do it.
Whatever, Papa, I can do it.
I couldn't do it.
That's exactly what our parents used to tell us, and they were right. And we're right. We're right telling them, if you guys had to do what we had to do.
I know one thing. The first year, I spent more days crying and by myself in a house because I didn't live at the dorms. I live in, I don't know if you heard Dave Tanner, if you know Dave Tanner, that he died. Yeah. He was, I rented a room with him, and he took very, very good care of me. But I was so depressed. I was so sad because I thought I was going to start the school. If not, I wouldn't have come. And then they told me that I couldn't, so I had to figure things out. And there was no internet. You couldn't call home because you had to go to a payphone, and sometimes you wouldn't get a line to Spain at that time. So Bloomington, Indiana, it's a beautiful place, but coming from Spain, it was horrible. It was just it was like going to a concentration camp. From being able to, when you're 14, to be outside in the streets until 5 a.m. in Barcelona, to not being able to come out of that house in the middle of the woods because you cannot do anything. It's, there's nothing for you to do at the age of 19 in a small town. It was really, really sad. Plus, I had to coach myself twice a day. So
twice a day for that first 6 months, 4 months. How long did that last?
Between September and December, before I went back home, before the next semester started.
But then you were a swimmer and you met Roque at NC2As. Is that what you said, Roque? What did you think of Sergio when you first met him? Did you know about him?
No, I didn't. I watched him swim. I was such a good swimmer. I watched the NC2As like in the first 3 years, every final I watched. So I'm watching the final, and there's this guy, from Indiana, and he's doing great. And I think he got like third place. And then I saw him afterwards, and I went up to him like, "Hey, great swim!" Because for me, it was a great swim. It was awesome. Go ahead, Sergio. You tell how you felt when you first met him.
Well, first, he looked very scary because he was all bald. And, to me, and now I can shave my head and it's okay. To me, that was very scary. So here comes this guy because Roque was a pretty big dude. Hey, great job. And I was very sad because I didn't swim very well. I didn't. I swam the same time that I would do in season. And I wasn't very happy. And so I looked at him and I was like, who the heck? I got scared. I really got scared. So until I saw him later on, one day when he walked on the pool deck, when he came to train with us, I was like, this is the guy that told me, good job. This is the crazy guy from the locker room.
It looks like you shave your head a lot there, Roque.
No, that was not me.
That was Ned from the Netherlands. No, that was the very first Olympic gold medalist.
I know, because it says Roque under it, and I was like, all right, I'm going to put this up anyway because it says Roque on it, so I'm going to put it up.
I've had a lot of time at home, so I've watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I watched that race, the 10K in China. But I watched it for a specific reason, and then I stopped, showed my kids. I go, look, there's your dad on the bicycle with the hat on next to you, Sid, because you were there too. We were riding the bike around watching the 10K. Side note.
Yes. No, that was a great experience. And being in China the first time the 10K Olympics, and Roque was there as a working man, and we had a lot of time, and you were just very, very welcoming to me and my family, Roque. So you'll get this, Sergio. Cornell Marculescu had been promising me for many years that he would take care of me if we got into the Olympics. I said, look, I want to bring my wife. I want to bring my 2 young kids. Quinn and I are flying on a separate flight because we have frequent flyers. Our flight gets delayed. My wife and daughter get there, young daughter. She's like 2. Quinn's about 6. It's 1980. They pick up the credentials. We come in the next day. She finds out my son, my daughter, and my wife all got the Olympic Infinity white number 0. It was like all access. They sat with Clinton and Magic Johnson and all those guys. But luckily Roque was there with Mike. I could go aquatics. I could go to any aquatics. But I do remember you, Roque, taking great care of us. And then especially we went out to the Great Wall of China. Do you remember that trip?
Mm-hmm.
And we
did the sled down together.
We had a slide. Incredible. So now when you guys got to the Olympics, and when you were swimmers, when you weren't working for the swimsuit companies and or coaching or whatever it was, 92. So what happened between the 88 Olympics and the 92 Olympics for you, Rock, that ended up getting you two guys together? And we'll talk about that picture behind Sergio there.
Yeah, so what I did, so at Cal in 1988, didn't do very well for me. I have a great friend, one of my best friends in the world, Mark Henderson, was a, Curl Burke swimmer where Mike Barrowman and Joseph trained. And, Mike encouraged me to go out to DC and train with him. I trained with the best swimmer in the world, Matt Biondi. So it's like, let's go train with the best breaststroker in the world. And so I decided, hey, let's see, for me, it was, I want to see how good I can be. What can I do? So I moved out there, and I remember going to the first practice, and same as Sergio, I was like, I know that guy. My story that I'd like to share is that I did the first 3 practices with Joseph, and then I came home and we did a thing. We do these 10 sets of 10 squat and jumps on 20 seconds. And, it's a new guy, so I'm jumping up as high as I can. I get to about 70, the 7th round, and I can't barely move or anything. And I look back, and Mike and Sergio are just like, no problem. And so then we had to jump in the water and swim. And then so I missed 3 practices. I went home and I couldn't really move. And then I walked to I went to it was a Friday afternoon practice, I'm pretty sure. And I went to that practice, and Sergio and I talked about this not too long ago. And I went up to Joseph, and I go, Joseph, hey, I'm sorry I missed the practice, but I'm, obviously I can barely move. And he looked at me and goes, you miss another practice, you don't come back.
Oh,
Yeah, but one of the practices, we did this set of 450s at 200, 50 easy 8 times, right? And the 200 was fast, and the 450s at a certain speed. And we had to swim in one lane, the 3 of us, right? So Mike was, let's say, on the right side of the lane. I was on the left side of the lane, and he had to swim in the middle of the lane. Right? So he would go behind us. And Joseph told us, you have to hit him. Do you understand? You hit him. You do not hesitate. You hit him with your legs. You hit him with your elbow. You hit him. And we just were like swimming and just trying to hit Rock. Because if we didn't hit him, Joseph was going to hit me, and I didn't really know. I like him. He was end up living with me, but I had to hit him sometimes. and then he's in the shower, like I'm not gonna say crying, but in a very sad way. And I was just not petting him, but you know when you just like put your hand on top of him and it's like, it's okay, you're gonna get better. And I'm thinking, he's gone, he's not coming back.
Vegas against you.
Let me tell you, it to train with Joseph is absolutely brutal, and the workouts that we did, I'm very proud of them, and I will talk to Joseph now and his swimmers that he's trained. And when he had coached Anime Pierce, the former world record holder and 200 breaststroker up in Canada, I would talk to her, and she would have the same experiences. Even to this day, when I meet somebody, I go, "Oh, you trained with Joseph?" And they go, "Yeah, it was 3 days, and then I ran away as quick as possible." Right. So I'm very proud that I lived through that, and I do. I can thank Sergio a lot of that for that little, just that little love and the back of the head. Something a little,
well,
it
made you guys tough. It made you guys tough as hell, So I mean,
yeah, but it was a choice you make. It is a choice. It is what you want in life. There's something for something. I'm not saying I cannot coach like that. There's no way I can put my swimmers through 1 week of that because I don't have that personality. I cannot just be like that on the pool deck. But I made a choice that, hey, I want to be the best in the world. And this guy is going to take me there or is going to help me. And I have the guy that is the best in the world with me. So I have a reference, And then when Rock came in, we were 3 of us just fighting to be the best. So you have always a reference. And,
but for me, honestly, I was just happy to be there. I still have great dreams of just being underwater going, okay, the world record holder, the second fastest guy in the world ever, and I'm next to them. What am I doing here? Right? It was a privilege and it was very hard.
And our training really was more psychologically hard than physically. It was like really like how to defeat one another every day. You know, just before you did something, you wanted to defeat that person. You know, for a couple of years, we could defeat Rock just looking at him. You know, and you know by just finishing. Yeah, it was like, but it was a way of you could understand how to control your heart rate, how to control certain things. So when you touch the wall and he looked at you, he was desperate. He's like, how come these guys are not tired? And we were exhausted, but you know, you just like kept yourself calm.
Give some examples, Sergio, how we would be swimming, right? Swim or swim. Come to the wall, you come to the wall, and you go. No, these two guys I'd swim with, they come to the wall, they touch, they go. And then they turn around and go. Right? And
it's the whole Lance Armstrong deal where he doesn't look like he's hurting, but he's really, really hurting.
But it's the same thing when you go to a competition. When you go to a competition, is the power of how people perceive you, you know? And, you know, if they perceive you, and, you know, it's like you walk on the pool deck, it doesn't matter if you're nervous or not, you know? It's how confident you are, or like, and how people, you can shave things from the competition just by being there and emanating that. So I think that's one thing that we really did pretty well. Like,
well, there's no doubt, and Sergio, that picture just behind your shoulder there with Joseph in the middle. Yeah, you got it. And you two got. Where was that taken? What was that? One of your competitions? Do you know?
Yeah, that's that one is, I believe, there was a competition in 1991 in Spain where Mark Spitz came to swim, and it was a thing for money. Like if you won. The event was $8,000. If you got second, was $4,000, I think, and if you got third, you were $2,000. And it was very interesting what happened in that meet because we cannot say it live, you know, but Mike's supposed to be the winner, and I ended up winning $8,000. Rock at second or whatever it was.
It was $3,000, and I was really happy to get second. Believe me.
And we beat Mike, both of us, and you know we walk around the pool deck like we were heroes. It was awesome.
So Mike
Sergio was already a hero, so that's gotta remember that.
But tell us a little bit about Barrowman when he was on. What were his greatest strengths?
Well, I think. I would say he was very tough. I think, and also him and Joseph had a different bond. You know, like if you think about it, the Joseph and Mike thought that he was going to be a gold medal in 1988. So for them to be fourth is the worst thing that can happen. The reason why Mike asked me to go train with him, and this is. Joseph told me, and you know, it's because he needed somebody. He found out that I was training at a high level, that I could train pretty well, but he needed somebody to remind him that he didn't get a medal at the Olympics every day, you know, and that's something that even though I'm the godfather of one of the kids for Joseph and Rock, we have a great relationship. Whatever bond they had to be Olympic champion. It was very strong, you know. It was like life or death, you know. So I think for him that was it. I'm gonna do anything possible to be an Olympic champion, and that's his mind was like that. Training hard, playing mind games, whatever he needed to do to be an Olympic champion, and that's what he did. You know, he broke the world record 6 times in 3.5 years.
Oh, I know. I was privileged enough to go as a coach to Perth. And in the segment, the whole team, it was the first time open water actually traveled and got the same uniforms. And I don't know, Rock, if you remember that trip, but when we flew from Sydney to Perth, I sat, you know, I drew the seat next to Barrowman, and I had never talked to him. I obviously had watched him race. I knew his coach and all that stuff. But I found him fascinating, and he was like, it's just in what you said, very focused, and it was at that time too, like, you know, 90, it was Christmas 90, New Year's 91, we were in Perth, and it was a phenomenal world championship, and the breaststroke level was incredible. What do you remember, Rock, You
Well, I
have
didn't make that trip, but there are things that I remember about that as a person that knew, Sergio and Mike intimately. And so what happened the summer before, Mike and Sergio and Kirk Stackle all broke the world record at the Goodwill Games up in Seattle. And actually Sergio and Kirk Stackle tied. So that fall was, and I wasn't there that fall, that was Mike and Sergio mano a mano all fall long leading up to, and I went back to Cal and trained leading up to World Championship. So that was they really went after each other, and Mike was that way. So my lucky day, when I beat him at the trials, the story I like to say is, I beat him at the trials, and I did something that nobody's ever done in the history of swimming. You watch the video, go ahead, try to find it. I kiss him on the arms, and when I showed my daughters about a month ago, because we've been watching a lot of TV, they all died laughing, right? And the next morning, we had to get ready. Mike was swimming the 200 IM, so we had warm up. So I knocked on his door, and he came out, and he opened up the door. He's wearing a white T-shirt. Under his white T-shirt was the medal that he won the night before. And so to me, this kind of gives you an insight of the person that he was, which is, I want to remember this feeling. I got beat, and I don't ever want to be beat again. So as a teammate of him and a friend, I saw that, it scares you, but it also, I know, and I feel the same way about Sergio, and I owe Sergio more than we can talk about here. But, I was a part of his gold medal. And so I take great pride in that. I didn't win a medal. Sergio's won a medal, but I got to be a part of our team.
And Rock, to your credit, you won the USA Olympic trials. I mean, that's an incredible. Almost every coach in America says, "Well, that's a better meet than the Olympics." Well, and I mean, I know from even '76 when I swam, and everyone I've been to since, watching as a coach, it's an incredible meet, and to win that is fantastic. Your times dropped tremendously, and I know in the one article you had credited Joseph with somehow changing your stroke a little. Do you remember?
Well, yeah. So, I did well at Cal, and I was like I won the Pac-10 and 88 in the 100 breaststroke, right? And there's a video of that, right? My stroke is like Steve Lundquist. I want to say Steve Lundquist, right? So it's nice and flat with a puff. And then, a year later, I go and train with Joseph for 12 weeks. He changed the stroke. It was very high intensity training. We'll call it the purple. And it was, you're working on the stroke. And I was a smart person in the sense that he didn't always talk to me about what the stroke was, but he was talking to Mike and Sergio. And I'm like, well, I'm going to listen, right? Because they're good. So, do this, do that. So I would try to copy and emulate what they would do, right? When they went up, I'd try to go up. How they did their pull-out, how they did their training, like, that's what the best was doing. I just copied them. And so that was kind of my mindset in that.
Well, you mentioned Barrowman was swimming the 200 IM. Joe had a little experience in the IM against Barrowman at Junior Nationals, wasn't it, Joe?
Yeah, it was like Syracuse. I don't know when it was, like 84, 85. And we were, I don't know if it was consies or finals. And I see him. He's next to me. I'm like, oh, my God, I better have a huge freaking lead before the breaststroke. But that was in Syracuse. He did pass me in the breaststroke. He probably ended up beating me because I was dead trying to hang with him. So, but yeah, we ended up going to Sports Fest anyway. So it was fun.
Yeah. those were some, there's Kerry Reed Ellett. Oh man. We're talking about great East Coast coaches. That guy.
So what do you guys? So you guys all training together, and you were friends and that kind of thing. But when you went back to sleep or whatever that night, you're going, God, man, how can I beat these guys? What were you thinking? There's got to be some stuff going on there where, yes, you're friends, but I want to get back at it because I had that growing up. So what? Let's talk to both of you guys about that, or is it just we're just friendly and we're beating the hell out of each other in practice?
I don't know, because Rock, we lived together for a while. My wife was there too, and
Meet your wife.
Yeah, it was
24 years yesterday, by the way. Congratulations!
Wow, congrats!
And congrats to both of you, Rock. You had an anniversary this week.
Yeah.
So I think I'm not sure if it was so much about thinking about you. For me, about Rock or Mike. It was about thinking about I was bronze in '88, there was only 4 medals for my country in the whole all sports in the Olympics, and I was the first medal in those Olympics. And they say, even though David Zubero won a medal in the 1980 Olympics in the 100 fly, a lot of people, since I was born and raised in Barcelona and I'm the first Catalan medalist and blah blah blah. So Barcelona has the Olympics, and I'm one of the best in the world. So they're thinking that I'm going to win a medal. And so for me, it was so much pressure, because growing up in the streets of Barcelona, I never thought that I would have given my hand and both hands to be in the Olympics. And now I have a chance to win a medal in my hometown, So that was probably the biggest issue that I had to deal every day, to try to gain ownership of who I was, instead of like having the pressure from my country and my city, And for me, training with Rock, we hang out, we beat one another every day, and then we go home, we ate pizza, or we cook something, he play video games, I watch TV, and we had a very good relationship. Mike would go to his house, so sometimes we hang out together. Some days we'll go after practice and have pizza, but I never thought about how I would beat Rock or Mike.
Wow.
I had enough things in my head.
Yeah, it sounds like it. I can't imagine at that time in '88. So just getting at least the bronze medal. Right?
Hey, getting at least the bronze medal.
You get awarded a bronze medal in Barcelona. What do? Do they give you the keys to the Dalí Museum, or they knight you, or how does that work?
Well, for me, when I was bronze in '88, and I got 4th in '92. 4th in the Olympics is the worst place you can get, even more in your hometown. So I was very depressed and very sad for a long time. And it took me 4 years to understand why. I was going to stop swimming in 1992. And after I touched the wall, my first thought, I told my mom and my wife, I said, look, don't ask me how long, don't ask me why, but I cannot stop swimming now. I have to keep going. And I kept swimming 4 more years, from 92 to 96. And just to try to understand why, what happened to me. It was such a bad feeling. And it took me 4 years to realize that, because I wanted always to be a coach, that if I wanted to be a good coach and help people, I needed to understand what I call the moment in time. And the moment in time is to appreciate everything you do. Because if you give your 100% honest, there's nothing else you can do. In the eyes of people, you're going to fail or not, because, coming out of the pool in Barcelona, maybe to walk 200 meters, it took me 45 minutes or an hour, from people, Spanish people just talking to me and telling me,
oh, I can't imagine. And
what happened? How bad was that? And you like all those messages that those great people, they're not trying to say anything bad, but it's just like bam and bam and bam. So it was very hard. I disappeared. I went home. I didn't even go to the closing ceremony. I went home. I was very depressed, sad.
But you kept at it. And one thing, Sergio, and you say you learned from it. I know Rock had a pretty disappointing meet in Barcelona too. By all rights, you swam a great race. The story was you pushed a little bit sooner, but by 3/100ths of a second, you missed out on the finals. You got 9th, right?
Yeah, who was 8th?
He was 8th.
Yeah.
And then so you moved up to 4th, but Barcelona, that pressure. But the field, as I recall the story, Rock, it was like 4 years later, that prelim time would have qualified 2nd in Atlanta, correct?
Yeah, that wasn't swimming. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep.
So you were here. You're in one of the deepest, fastest breaststroke heats ever in the 200 final at Barcelona, and you guys are fighting it out. You end up losing out in the prelims. You don't have the finals you wanted, but you guys both came back and continue to give. Rock, how did you relate to that disappointment? How did you handle it? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's 100% similar to Sergio. I had a basketball coach that would tell us that, after the game, can you look at yourself in the mirror and say, did you try your best? Did you give your best effort? Even though during the basketball game, you made a pass that was stolen, or you missed the last shot, but, did you prepare the best way you know how to prepare, and you give 100%? And so to me, And I remember like it was yesterday, Sergio was next to me. We watched the final heat in the morning, and and he was, we're trying to both make the finals, and then boom, there was a Japanese guy that beat my time and bumped me, actually bumped us both, but bumped me out. And I remember that same walk Sergio had where it was like, what can I have done differently? How did I do it? And so I don't have any regrets from it. I feel like I climbed the mountain, and I did appreciate where I got to on the mountain. And to me, coming from where I came from and the improvements that I made, it was just an awesome experience to be a part of that. And of course, now I'm way older, so you're going, God, I could have, but it's like, I'm okay. It's going to be okay. I didn't get a medal. I didn't swim in 96. I had a great, and I have all these friends. I have one of the greatest people that you guys, this is how I feel about Sergio, on the planet, and one of the kindest people, and then knowing how he's coached and the people he's coached, right? Didn't he have on his bowls team 3 guys that are now gold medalists?
Yeah, in high school.
It was ridiculous. He had everybody on that team.
I was lucky to be at the right place at the right time.
And didn't he? Oh yeah, whatever. Didn't he recruit Matt Greenberg and Mike Alexandrov and Northwestern? What? Right. Yeah. So he's been unbelievable where he's gone, and I've just enjoyed, and I can tell you, I beat Sergio once at a swimming. True story.
And you won the USA Olympic trials.
No. But he came to watch the Olympic trials, and he was like so happy for me.
Well,
right?
I was the only one. When he won. We were with Paul Burke, and everybody's like, they wanted Mike to win. Mike took even 2 flags that he was going to win and go like this with 2 American flags. He liked all that stuff. So, everybody's waiting for Mike to win, and here comes Rock, and he touch him out. And I'm just jumping up and down because I sneaked in. I didn't supposed to be on the pool deck, but I just got in, and I was so happy running and this, and everybody was so quiet, like over there. All the coaches were happy, but they were.
I remember, yeah. No, I remember Gary and Pete and all those guys. I was there. I was there.
But yeah, I don't regret anything. I think for me, getting 4th at the Olympics in Barcelona, if I want to look at it, I always want to look at the positives of the negatives. I kept swimming for 4 more years. I trained very hard. I put it like this. Without shaving and tapering, I was top 15 in the world in the 200 fly. I was very good in the 200, the same 200 IM, 400 IM. I trained very hard. But before every big meet, I had either a heart problem, I had a kidney stone, something happened to me. And then I qualified for the 96 Olympics, and my country didn't take me. So they only took 4 swimmers, and they decided not to take me. So, my life has been a very interesting roller coaster with all that, but I think has given me a very good perspective and appreciation of the reason why I started swimming, what swimming has given me. And I think as a coach, what I can make people understand that swimming can give them in life, like Rock, besides going to the Olympics, I took him, 9 times to Spain with me just to hang out and have a meet, make some money, and just meet people, have great food, some dances, la 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 la.
I know Barcelona. I know it well.
Sid. So there's a couple of questions in here, and they're talking about breaststroke technique and stuff, training between 92 and 96, but also Elliot from Hawaii is talking about today's breaststroke, right? So what are some of the modern techniques that go? And I want to mention, before we get to Elliot's question, both of you guys, Rock came when I was at Highlander Aquatics, coaching Highlander Aquatics, and we trained at the Navy-based pool. And Rock came by, I think he was doing a clinic for like a day. And he got in and did a breaststroke kick. And I'm like, that's freaking narrow. That's pretty darn narrow, the old school breaststroke kick. So that's the first time that I saw it. I guess I got in the pool behind him and just saw the narrow kick. And I'm sure it's been around, but I just really didn't pay attention to it because I wasn't a coach, right? When you're a coach, you see things differently. So anyway, that's the first time I saw that. That brings me to Elliot's question. The modern breaststroke technique. So what do you think? What do you think, Sergio?
I think, to me, modern breaststroke, I think as a coach, you adapt to the athlete that you have in front. The athlete is the one with the talent. And more we're having more athletes not just swimmers. In the past, people swam. Now you have really good athletes. So they're stronger. They can understand how they move better. So I'm not sure for breaststroke particularly. There's so many components that I would like to see the morphology of an athlete, or their body, and how they move and what they feel. Because one might feel the kick better, one might be a much better pull. I think if you talk with Joseph, he will tell you right now it's more arm-based, pull-based than kick-based. You can have a smaller kick, like Adam Peaty or some people, But you also have, I have a guy, AJ Pouch, that has a very big kick, and he's very efficient. So I think breaststroke is more complicated than people think, and you just have to understand the body. I think there's so many components: the hands, the forearm, the shoulders, the head, the hips.
Before I go to Rock on that, I want to answer you, Sergio, because this is what Bob Matson taught us in the 70s. You talk about modern breaststroke, the wave breaststroke. Tracy Calkins brought this. It really wasn't Tracy. Paul Bergen was coaching in Philadelphia. He came and watched Bob Matson teach a mechanics class on breaststroke. I know because I was in it. We had Jenny Franks, who was the American record holder in the 400 IM. And she couldn't do an underwater pullout, but she could do this wave breaststroke. Schaefer Henry went to Indiana, and he was an IMer breaststroker. We had a group that Matson had, and when Paul Bergen left Philly and he went to Nashville and he had Tracy and he taught her this, Matson told us he learned the sculling from watching Steve Genter at the AAU Nationals in the late 60s, 69, somewhere in there, 70. But he was jumping in and goofing around, pretending he was a SEAL, and he was sculling his hands back and forth and kind of barking like a SEAL. And the referee went and yelled at him. But Matson said he had never seen anybody. He was like way up out of the water, super high. And he went home and started teaching us sculling. And I remember distinctly. Now, Matson was a 200 breast NCAA champ in the 50s, the very first NC State national champ in NC2A in any event, any sport. Matson would teach us 3 different pulls and 3 different kicks. He said, you can put any combination together depending if you're told where your feel is. So I think what you're saying is absolutely, like here, I'm hearing Bob Matson 40 years later, because you've got to work with the kid. You got to work with the body. And
now, put it very simple. In breaststroke and butterfly, what do you think is the most important point to think about?
Timing.
Nope.
The pull and the kick must be timed together.
No.
What?
The center of gravity. The center of gravity has to be always close to the surface of the water and be constant. Like if you look at Steve Lundquist, that he was so flat, right? And you look at Adam Peaty or Kevin Cordes or Rebecca Soni, the center of gravity doesn't move from the surface of the water, and that's the most important thing. That's why Pankratov came breathing on the side and broke the world record too. It's very hard to breathe on the side on butterfly, but that's how you keep your center of gravity always in the same place, And the wave breaststroke is every component from your hands, your forearms, your shoulders, your head position, how you throw it. It's to keep that center of gravity always in the same place. It doesn't move. You can slide out and come out, but your center of gravity doesn't move. And if you can do that, your speed is always constant, and that's what you want in swimming. You want the speed constant. Make sense? Like Mike Barrowman in the last 50 at the Olympics in Barcelona, when he went 210, everybody's like, wow, he speed up. And it's like, no, whoa, everybody else is slowed down. He just kept his speed constant. One of the things that Joseph was an artist on helping us out was trying to understand what you needed to correct personally, each one of us, when you were swimming, to keep that center of gravity always in the same place. Make sense? And that's the most important.
Jeremy Lin calls it weight differential, and he's a pretty damn good breaststroker.
Whatever you want to call it, but that center of gravity in butterfly is the same thing. And you can just change it or keep it just with your eyes in butterfly. Depends where your eyes go, your center of gravity is going to move. So you have to be very smart with that. So if you can understand somebody's height, somebody's hips, the way they move, and you can help them do different things. So that center of gravity is always, what's the shortest distance between A and B? Straight line. So you want that center of gravity to go straight. That's breaststroke. That's pure wave breaststroke.
That makes sense. Rock, you think your early coach, Ernie McLeishko, would echo those thoughts?
Well, now he would, because he's learned better. I wish he's listening. That'd be good. But yeah, so to me, when I changed everything and I'm copying, Mike and Sergio and listening to what Joseph's saying, my stroke changed a lot, like every part of it. And then so to me, the breaststroke now, I like to think that they looked at what we did and that they've tried to improve it and change things. And the training that we did, I think people have taken parts of that. And in fact, I know they've taken parts of it and incorporated it into their training. So to me, I'm proud to be a part of that thing. There's the Hungarian wave. I got to be a part of that group. And, I've got to do clinics all across the country, back in my earlier days for a lot of kids. And to me, I take great pride in reading articles when they talk about breaststroke, because a lot of those words that they use, where Jeremy used a word, I'd never heard of that, but that's his language. And so when they use our language, it makes me happy. And so I'm proud of that.
But like Joseph, when he developed the wave breaststroke, he did it as his thesis for graduation in college. It was a paper, and he created the best stroke possible, and he's a very brilliant guy. Right?
Joseph's fantastic, yeah.
So, but that stroke is kind of like, in a way, impossible for somebody to do it perfectly. You have to adapt. Like when the Spanish coaches, when Joseph went to Spain, and they asked him, "What did you change in Sergio's stroke?" He says, "Nothing." Because he just and the truth was, like, he just gave you a couple tips of how, because all of us, the three of us, we understood the water pretty well, and each one of us differently. He never told me, Sergio, we have to change your stroke. He never. Like, I was already top 3 in the world. He just allowed me to understand my body a little bit better. I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, Brian McKinley says John Hankin revolutionized the new breaststroke, and he didn't realize it. I don't know. I remember Hankin swimming in his burly. You California, you might remember the style, Rock. And then I remember David Wilkie, and he was a lot different. Madsen, we had. I mean, it was so hard for me to swim breaststroke, Joe. I don't know about you guys. It was I think I coached it better because I paid attention, because I was so bad at it. But I was able to have national age group record holders out of Danielle Van Dyke and Seth Van Meerden before he went. I had Seth. I
was going to mention him because he's got that undulation big time.
Oh, yeah.
He'd get all crazy on that.
When he made his comeback, he came to Madsen and they were working it, and then he sent him down to Jack Nelson. But I would agree with the first thing you said, Sergio, that it's all different. But I love the weight differential. I like talking about the center of gravity. I think it makes so much technical sense in those difficult strokes, especially breaststroke, which is, I think the hardest, the hardest one of all. But,
So I'd like to add a little bit. So to me, we take parts of each person. I was a master swimmer, went to Hawaii with my wife in 2001, and we were underwater and we heard this noise. And then sure enough, it was Jeremy Lin swimming breaststroke. And I never seen him the way I saw him, which was like when Joe was talking about me. I went underwater and watched his breaststroke kick, and I go, that is why he's so good. Right? He kicks, and Jeremy Lin comes up, and it's a very explosive, powerful kick. And I was like, wow, that is awesome, right? Like, that's something a lot of people aren't doing. And we do it now. We look at Rebecca Sony and how her little kick, right? It's like, wow, that's the key, right? And so I think as a lover of the breaststroke and person that watches, we watch Adam Peaty. Wow, his pole is so wide and powerful, and look at him, he's so strong. And I think there are athletes now where maybe back in the day they weren't such great athletes.
Well, I'm sure big feet definitely help. You guys probably have bigger feet, but Matt, I would call that polishing the kick at the end when the kick finishes with that snap, and you're right. Jeremy was pretty sharp at it. I think overall the most challenging stroke to swim, and Nobody's going to really argue with that. It's the most difficult, right? And that's why they always said breaststrokers were kind of weird, that you guys were always a little different, a little spacey, a little out there. Yeah.
That guy, whatever, yeah, he's a little bit weird. I'm not. I'm very normal.
Wait a minute. You know why they invented breaststroke? This is way back in the history books. You know why they invented breaststroke? To give the freestylers a rest.
Probably. Yeah. When I was a kid, I was faster breaststroker than freestyler. So I always got a rest.
But
hey,
yeah,
everybody in the chat. That's am I right on that? I mean, let us know in the chat because that.
Well, I see David Morrow Guthrie. That guy's still setting world records in Masters. He's talking about David Wilkie. I remember I got to know Wilkie. I went down there on a recruiting trip. He was the nicest guy. Then when I was coaching at Miami, we brought him back for a reunion, and he was, in my mind, a completely different style than Henkin, and there were people in between, and yet I think it was a lot better when you guys came around. And following up with Joseph, the thesis, I have certainly heard of that. I may have even seen it or talked to him about it. Joseph used to talk a lot to Matson about mechanics and technique. I know that it was an incredible time. Well, we're kind of winding down near the end, Joe. I mean, we could go on and talk breaststroke technique with these guys for another hour, easy too, maybe 3 or 4 days.
I know. I would love it because our team needs it. Like you guys need to come down and do a clinic. Just all the breaststrokers need to come down and do a clinic. Jeremy, Rock, and Sergio, just come down.
We'll have to do that. But I see Ronald Lee put up a race where Sergio and Seth were racing head to head.
I don't know if you remember Seth behind the blocks. He would get all freaky, right? He would look down at the end of the lane and rub his forearms on the block and jump up and down and get crazy. I'm like, that guy's crazy.
Joe, when he was 12, I used to beat on his chest. I would beat on his chest right before he went. I said, Coach, come on. I would do it for him. Get up there now. Get up. And talk about stories. I should bring Seth on here, but some of those stories that have to go on after dark. Who's
the breaststroker that used to jump? And Jeremy Lin was saying 40-inch vertical helps, but who was the breaststroker that used to bump his head on the ceiling out of LSU? What was his name?
40-inch vertical leap.
It was Todd Torres, but the other guy that was there with him, Rock, I forget who it is, but there were 2 breaststrokers there. They would do the underwater pullouts when they let us do 2, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, bumped his head. I forget his name.
Andy Diker. Andy Diker, my assistant coach at Miami. Thank you, Joey. Speaking of breaststrokers, Joey swam breaststroke at Plantation for the late, great Andy Cohen. Look at this, all these breaststrokers coming out. Jared Mars. Yeah, that's another good one. Yeah. Oh, man. Well, listen, coaches, swimmers, athletes out there, enjoy this time. It is a special time. I'm going to ask each of our guests to kind of take their time and sign off, leave us with any kind of message. It's a crazy time in the world. We really, really appreciate Rock and Sergio, you both giving us this time tonight. So, Rock, we'll start with you. Leave us with a little message. Anything that might give us some inspiration before you sign off.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on because I'm not a coach and I don't swim and I'm just involved in the swimming world and a fan, a huge fan of the sport and have been appreciative of some of the kids I got to watch and follow through their swimming careers and just be a part of it. It's been very fun. So to me, my message is, it's joy in the journey. There's a lot of pain that's involved in swimming, a lot of training. You may not realize where you are, actually how good you did. Because I know if you ask Sergio right now and go, getting 3rd place in NC2As, that's still pretty good, right, Sergio? Right? So that appreciation for where you are and what you're doing and how hard of work it is, and then those things pay off 10 times fold in your life. So that's my message. And I haven't swam a real, competitive national level swim meet for many, many years, and just to be a part of it. And then of course I have an older brother, but to follow his friends, and then to be, I live here close to Cal, so to follow the Cal swimmers and go to the NC2As and watch it, and then get on the pool deck legally with Sergio and with him. And had Ted Knapp that Stanford go, hey, get out of there. You're sitting on our area. So that happened a couple of years ago at NC2A. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry. I know I'm a Cal guy, but I do, and I appreciate it. I love all the Stanford swimmers I used to swim against, when I was a Cal guy. So I look past that. I'm good friends with Kirk Stackle. I loved racing Seth Van Neert and Todd Torres. And I just, what a great time. Nelson Diebel, right?
Nelson. Congrats to Nelson.
He gets to be a coach again. So it's fun to be a part of that.
Thanks, Rock. That was awesome. Sergio, what do you got for us?
I think very similar to Rock. I think the older you get, you realize that the only thing that you really own in life are the relationships that you create with your family, with your friends, and how you embrace them and how you take care of them. And I think to me, swimming gave me the power to understand who I was. And I understand that people say, oh, swimming is not so important. You have to get a job. You have to be a doctor. You have to be this. But through the time that you go through swimming before you become a doctor, a janitor, a coach, I think you learn so much. And it doesn't matter if you go to the Olympics or to the state meet, you create amazing relationships that if you keep them, I don't know, they're going to bring a lot of happy moments in your life, And I think that's the most important. Enjoy the moment in time. Be sad when you don't win or when you don't reach your goal, but that's part of life. And then you can cry for 5 minutes and then just keep doing it, enjoy it and have fun. I think we're very lucky to be part of a very impressive sport that teaches us a lot of stuff. And then you can relate, like Rock said, the rest of your life, with it. I think
that's great stuff.
Well said. Joe, what do you got?
Well, I mean, just to be on the call with these guys is great stuff, and they're great swimmers. Coach, it's just great to watch them, and the build the relationships that Sergio is talking about. They're friends for life, and basically all I can say, more than what they said, is all the swimmers that are watching and the coaches are watching, continue to be a student of the sport and just learn as much as you can to get better and meet new people and see new things to make your trade better. So I think it was great to hang with you guys tonight, and I certainly appreciate every minute of it.
And you know what? I really feel very much the same way. I see the comments here. I see people like Leanne Fetter, the great Texas swimmer. She coached at James Matt. It's not the destination, just what Sergio, it's the journey. I see Elliot's, his relationships, and that's well stated. I think for us at this time that having this chance to solidify these relationships and give our young ones, whether it's our own children, the sons and daughters that we're raising that are now, going through their own changes and challenges of this time. And certainly those that we're coaching, for those of us that do. But in the long run, Joe, Sergio, Rock, we're here for a short time, and I'm very, very thankful that we are involved in this great sport of swimming, because it gives us a little bit of a different vision, a little bit of a different kind of a family when we face challenges like we faced over the last 3 months, and looking forward to the next few weeks. I know that our loyal watchers or listeners out there will be eager. We've lined up the next 3 Mondays. We'll get an announcement out soon, but we got some pretty big fun nights coming. And of course, Wednesday night this week, Joe, we have a big night with our coaches happy hour right here on the same bat stations. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Well, real quick, we're going to Brazil. We've got Bruno Darzi, coach of Coral Springs. He's from Brazil, of course. And then Bruno Fratas, the sprinter, is coming in. We're going to talk to him a little bit. And then Flavia Della Roli, if I can say her last name properly. She was an Olympian in 2004, 2008. So join that show on Wednesday. It's going to be absolutely awesome. And, of course, Sid is going to put his love on it. So I'll see you all Wednesday.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Thanks for the chance, and have a beautiful night.
Amen.
Join us on the Swim Monkey.
Swim